into the village. Okay, so this piece is it's a chapel. It is a laboratory. It is a spaceship, right? And what else is it?
Time machine.
Time machine.
Yeah,
It's crusty. It's rusting. This is a work by the artist Colin Lyons. It's actually based. The shape of it is based off the nose capsule of I believe the Dragon something rocket. He's insane. Don't record that, Michael.
It's too late.
He's insane. He's an absolutely amazing artist. He's one of these folks who's like, go big or go home, He did all of these pieces of plexi he glued together by hand, he cut by hand. The metal he welded by hand. The flooring he cut and welded by hand. The guy is nuts. And he did it all by himself. And he's also a kind of alchemist. He's driven by questions of what are they called? What are they called? The folks who think that everything can be solved with science. The
geoengineering.
So the geoengineering, but they're called something like
yes.
Something modernist, eco-modernists.
Eco-modernists.
If you ever Google Eco-Modernist Manifesto, it's a really fun reading because it's basically like Silicon Valley's ideology towards the environment put in very stark terms, which is basically like we can fix anything.
They're like the folks that want to, to solve global warming, you just cover the Earth in a blanket of, silver nanoparticles.
Yes, exactly.
That would work, nothing could go wrong.
Perfect.
Right. So he decided that he was going to merge these eco-modernist geoengineering notions with 17th century alchemical practices in a laboratory that was designed to help deteriorate mining tools from the Canadian Klondike region. Klondike? Yes, right? Alberta? And grow a tree of life, which is a highly invasive plant, right in the center of it.
That's that little one. So it's a Alianthus.
Yeah, go jump in.
It's called Tree of Heaven. Also
Tree of Heaven.
And people who really hate it call it the Tree of Hell. It's one of the fastest growing plants in North America. It can grow massively tall, and it's allelopathic, so it changes soil chemistry, which kills off the fungi that all the other plants need to get water and nutrients. So it basically poisons the soil, so only it survives.
Is that one of those?
Yeah.
Yes. But it's growing in an entirely contained environment. There's plastic sheeting all around, and
I think underground.
Yeah.
Like you can just walk down the road and you'll find a dozen.
Oh, really?
They're everywhere. Yeah.
But
This tree also pulls all the heavy metals out of the ground. That's
Right.
why it's there.
is that right?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons he's interested in it, because it occupies this very ambiguous position between being really aggressive and invasive and being one of those useful plants in terms of cleaning up the earth.
A remediator.
Yeah. Is the wood useful?
It is, because it grows so fast. It has the density of pine, so it's like basically, it grows I think 4 times faster than a pine tree. So it has applications.
Yeah.
But not necessarily straight.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Controlled forest somehow.
They're everywhere. If you've ever been on the Rosendale Trestle, on both sides are massive Tree of Heaven.
That oxidation inside is happening because of the metals being pulled?
He's creating a variety of batteries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Using a bunch of acids and metals.
Okay.
Oh,
And I don't actually know if he knows what kinds of experiments he's undertaking here. And I don't think that's part of that's the point of the piece. The title is Laboratory of Everlasting Solutions, and he really is trying to highlight the absurdity of geoengineering proposals and this idea. The whole the Whole Earth catalog. I don't know how much you know about this Whole Earth thing, but it basically kicked off kind of DIY movement, or at least was maybe a pinnacle of the DIY movement, kind of self-sufficiency movement, and it starts with a very interesting statement. It says, "We are as gods, and we might as well get used to it." And that really is the ethic that a lot of folks, a lot of very powerful people, have internalized, and I think he's really questioning that. Well, we might as well move on, but I think in his case, he wanted to experiment with a variety of these things and just kind of show how nonsensical they all are. I'm so grateful that Matthew and Emilie are here tonight. And Michael. To jump in. And by the way, these 4 people, this show would not have happened without Matthew, Emilie, and Michael. It's really important that you all understand that a show like this takes a lot of work and a lot of wheelbarrows and shoveling. A lot of holes.
I also, it's worth saying that Paul was the one that it's his vision and his amazing ability.
Yeah, but I can't do it without you.
Yeah, but you're so good at.
Oh no!
Come on.
So this pole, this is a flag. Actually, the flag is quite large, and somehow it got stuck up there, and we have to fix it. Probably in the more recent storm or something. It's called Site Profile Flag number 4 by Brooke Singer. Brooke is a multidisciplinary artist, new media artist, has done a lot of very interesting work. I recommend you look her up. And she is a professor at SUNY Purchase. And one of her really important projects is called Carbon Sponge, where she works with a bunch of soil scientists to design carbon capture systems using a variety of different kinds of plants and gardens. Super interesting work. In this case, she started a few years ago to create these site profile flags. I don't know how much you know about like soil profiles. But basically, like if you were to, take a tube, and just like, and then like take out a big pillar from the earth, you would get these striations from a variety of different soil compositions, and it would tell you a lot about the soil. Am I right about any of this?
Yeah.
Am I wrong about that? She decided she used that notion to create a different kind of site indicator. She using plants that were from a very, very particular defined area, she created dyes, and then dyed using each one of these plants. She would dye these strips of fabric and then sew them together. And what you'll see, I wish you could see it. But in fact, every one of these has a QR code on them, and that's not this one. Hers is over there, and you'll see a picture, and you'll hear her speak about the work for 2 minutes. More about that in a second, but yeah, in my what I love about this project is that, first of all, I'm really interested in flags. I really like the idea of creating this kind of abstract symbol for a very real thing, which is Earth, like a place. And I love the idea of rethinking how those symbols come to be and what those symbols indicate. In this case, first of all, she's creating a kind of symbol for a new bioregional politics, right? Or maybe a hyperlocal politics. She's creating a flag that deteriorates over time, that has to be constantly reconstituted, and there's also something really wonderful about that, about the practice of continually recreating the symbols that that I guess, I don't know what a flag does, maintain your pride of a place or something. So it's really, yeah, so it's a very interesting project to me. And this is a cedar tree that actually died right here, and Michael was instrumental in putting this flagpole up.
Thanks.
So one thing before we go on, every one of the labels, I'm so hot, I'm like losing my
We should
mind.
get into the
Into the shade?
yeah,
Okay.
over there.
As
Like we can
quickly
talk
as
about it
possible.
from there.
Yeah, do you guys want to just kind of like hang, like walk around?
Well, let's go, like we can go on that side as a group, you know, like down there.
All right, well, okay, so let me just name things and then we'll talk about them. This is a work by How to Perform an Abortion over here. They call it the Found Abortion Monument. It's basically they sectioned off a piece of the meadow here, and they identified abortifacient plants, or plants that have been used for generations by women to manage their own fertility. And there were so many. There were like 10 different plants that women for generations in this area used to manage their own fertility.
And what really interests me about that too, and it's of course extremely timely. You guys are probably aware of how the Supreme Court upheld Texas's ruling to essentially make abortion illegal in Texas. I think it's a great example of, like, whenever humans move, they move with their co-species. And so we're not looking at nature here. We're looking at, like, the ruins of, first of all, the Lenape giant food forest that supported hundreds of thousands of people. We're looking at all of the histories of Europeans that came here with their plants. And of course, like every civilization has women have been taking control of their reproduction via plants. And so these plants were brought intentionally. It's not accidental. They didn't just occur. They were planted on purpose because they're part of this larger sort of pharmacy, how do you say that?
Abortifacient.
Abortifacient, right? So, yeah, even things as common as like milkweed and sumac, which is right behind you right there.
Queen Anne's lace.
Queen Anne's lace,
Yeah.
wild carrot.
Goldenrod. Well, so they are part of a collective, like a super intergenerational group of women who are they've done a lot of research into the practices that women have used in many different places, in many different cultures over many centuries, to manage their own fertility, and the kinds of attitudes that their societies and cultures had about abortion specifically. And it's they run these workshops. It's a very interesting practice that they have, and I encourage you all to look it up. It's howtoperformanabortion.com. It's really, really interesting work. And it shows, by the way, that not everybody. There are many different ways of thinking about birth. There are many different ways of thinking about women's health. So it's really cool. Okay. Oh right, and in this case, they were thinking a lot about monuments. I think that's an important part of this. They were thinking a lot about what it means to create a monument, what it means to inscribe that in the earth. And in their case, they wanted to invert that. They wanted to say, you know what, the monument is already here, we just need to call attention to it. They created these kinds of weavings that both frame and constrain the plants in some ways, or kind of constrain our experience of them, which I find really interesting. Like in most of these pieces, there's a complicated relationship with the subject matter. There's no easy or pure answer to anything. I don't think any of our artists here is giving an easy out, which I really appreciate, and is part of why folks were chosen. In this case, this is a duo of artists. It's Eleanor King and Lucy Pullen, both Canadian artists who work down in the United States. Lucy created these stairs, and in this case, the stairs are meant to evoke both beehive architecture, and at the same time, they're kind of like the stairs that like Greek philosophers would sit on, in the paintings in Athens, and like one of those with the toga, with the robes.
I thought it was really good.
Thank you. And this is like a kind of beehive monolith behind it. They would love for you to sit here and kind of discuss democracy while looking at the beehive monolith and considering bee governance, how bees govern themselves. Bee governance is a really interesting thing because it's a kind of algorithmic democracy, or an algorithmic kind of governance. They come to consensus. The way they make decisions is super interesting, and the questions that they're asking really come down to what about the ways that bees come to consensus? What about that process can we adopt in our own democratic practices? And what do we want? What do we want to kind of avoid? It's a very interesting set of questions, and it's important, especially now in the age of AI, how we use
Machine learning.
Yeah, how we use machine learning and kind of and just like algorithms in general to help us make decisions about resource allocation and power dynamics and things like that. This is a work by Alejandro Chellet. It is not really a work by him. He's in Mexico, and throughout the entire pandemic, he was unable to make it here. His work is called The Hickster Oven.